In my last video, you saw the difference between a double stack magazine and a single stack magazine. This time around, we're going to see how those differences influence how you load them. Coming up. Welcome back to the 9mm edition of Get on Target with Link. Glad you're here. On the last video, we did go over the difference between these two, the double stack and the single stack. The design of these magazines has an influence on how you load them. And that's what we're going to go over today. And we're going to start by loading the single stack magazine for the Smith & Wesson M&P Bodyguard. All we're going to be doing today is looking at the magazines themselves, no weapons, so everything will be safe, and we're going to proceed from there. But let's start out with the simplest of the three, the single stack Smith & Wesson Bodyguard magazine. So here we have our Smith & Wesson single stack. Very, very simple magazine. This is as simple as it gets. Just straight up and down loading. Nothing fancy about it at all. Just a spring keeping them in place. Now, if you look at the top of the magazine, there's a lip right here that you're going to put the rounds in. Where the red part is sticking out, that's the point, that's the side that's going to be pointing toward the front of the gun. So when we take a round, it's going to go in this way. Okay? So far, so good? Now, my suggestion with these is as you're loading them, you kind of give it a head start with your finger and then push down with the round itself and slide it in. Did you see that motion? I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take it out. So the first round is pretty easy. So you can do it without pre-compressing this is called the follower. It follows all the rounds up the magazine. So it's pretty easy to just push it down and then slide it back, and now that is in place and it's being held in by these lips. The next round will be just a little bit more challenging, and I typically am going to push down on this with my finger to get it a head start. And as I'm putting the round in, I don't put it down on the bullet side, but on the casing side. And that way I don't hit the lip between them and make it kind of difficult to get it in. Does that make sense to you? So not on the bullet side, but on the casing side. So same thing, I'm pushing it down a little bit with my finger, and then once I get it started, just push down and slide back. Now we're going to put all 6 in here. We'll have a fully loaded weapon. Now, because this is such a simple magazine and the spring is being compressed straight down, it's pretty simple. This is not a difficult magazine to load. It's quite easy. Just push it down a little bit, get it started, push the bullet down on top of the other one, and slide it in. Push it down, put it on the casing, push it down again, slide it in. We're almost done. One more to go. This is the 6th round, and now we've got a fully loaded magazine. Pretty simple. Now, the principles that we just did are consistent. You're going to see them again. So, that was the single stack for the Bodyguard. Now, the principles that we just went over on this magazine, they're going to be the same for every magazine you ever load. Every single one of them, you're going to be able to load the same way. But some of them are going to be a little bit more difficult to load, and for particular reasons. The next one we're going to look at is also a single stack 380 ACP magazine for the Glock 42. But now, as you can probably see, you've got the rounds are slightly offset, and that has an implication in loading them, and we'll talk about that now. Now we have our Glock 42 magazine, and as we noted at the beginning, This has got those offset rounds going in there. So as they go in, they're going side to side and loading that way. It's just slightly so. But the implication of that is, as we're pushing them down in, those rounds are being pressed against the side of the magazine because they're offset. As you're pushing them down, they're being pushed against the sides a little bit more. And so there's some pressures there that aren't on the Smith & Wesson magazine that's going straight down. No pressure at all from the side walls to speak of. So in loading this, the process is the same. Again, the first one's pretty easy, but it's not as easy as already. It wasn't as easy as the Smith & Wesson. Next one, I'm going to give it a head start. Again, put the round on the casing of the bullet below it and push it down. This is number 3. Push it down, slide it in. Give it a head start, push it down in the casing, slide it in. Same thing. It's getting a little tight now. And here's number 6. And it takes a little bit more force. This is still an easy magazine to load. It's not tough. On the back now, I don't know if you can see it, but if I peek in those windows, I can see that they are now, that this is loaded and it has all 6 rounds in it. I can see that here. The same thing is true on the Smith & Wesson. If you remember, the casings of the bullets, in this case, are silver. Frequently, they're not going to be. They're going to be brass, but in this case, they're silver. They're aluminum. And so you can see the aluminum casing showing through the windows, and you can count up to 6, and that's a fully loaded magazine. Same thing here. We can see the silver casing inside those windows. So a little bit tougher, but still a pretty darn easy magazine to load. Not a big challenge. Don't need any aid to do it. So if the offset nature of the Glock 42's magazine has an influence on loading it, well, that is exemplified in a double stack. These are much more radically offset as they go down to fit more rounds into a similar length magazine. And that means the pressure against those outer walls is even stronger. As you get down to, this is also a 12-round magazine compared to 6-rounders that we've been looking at so far. That also has an implication, because as you go down and you fill it up and you fill it up, when you get down to those last 3 or 4 rounds, the spring at the very bottom is really compressed, and the resistance gets greater and greater and greater as it squeezes down. So it gets tough on those last rounds. This is a 12-rounder, but they make 15s and 17s and some that get so big they're comical. But as you get down to those last rounds, they get tough to load. They have come up with a tool to help you to load the magazine and make it simpler and faster. That can be really helpful at the range where you're spending 20 or 30 bucks on range time per hour. You don't want to spend that time loading a magazine, and an autoloader will make that a lot faster. So we're going to look at that right now. Okay, now we're on to the big boy. This is the double stack for the Taurus G2C 9mm. So this is going to hold 12 rounds. And the offset on this is going to be more dramatic. They're going to really be pushing against those sidewalls as it goes down. And because it's a 12-rounder, that magazine spring is going to get really, really compressed toward the end and put up a lot of resistance in loading. So we're going to see how to use a tool to aid us in loading up this magazine. But just so you know, it's the standard things that we've just learned. Nothing changes. Put it down, put it on the casing side, not the bullet side, so you don't deal with the lip. Push it down, slide it in. Give it a head start. Casing side, slide it in. Nothing's changed. But as it's going down, they're zigzagging across the magazine. So once you get down a little ways, it starts getting a little tougher. And especially if you've been at the range for a while, you can start getting tired. And this can be a hassle. This can be a challenge. So there's a tool, and it's called an autoloader. There are several different versions of it. This is sort of a fancy version. There are others that are a little bit simpler, but the concept is that you're getting a whole lot more leverage with this to push the magazine spring down and load the next round. If you look, I'm going to look at this for just a second. If you look inside, there's this slide, and when I squeeze this, the slide goes in. What's going to happen is we're going to take the magazine and we're going to put it inside, and now that slide, when I squeeze it, will go on top of the bullet, and as I push down, it opens up that chamber. Now all I have to do is just drop in the round. Before I let it go up, I let it go. Now the round is loaded. I move this back up, so this slide, when I squeeze it, goes on top of the bullet I just loaded. Push it down again. Now I've got an open runway into the magazine. Release it. That one is loaded now. Come back up. Squeeze this. Sorry, getting off camera here. Squeeze this. Push it down again. Open track. Just drop it in. Oh, there we go, sorry. Drop it in, let it go on top. Drop it in, let it go on top. Push it down, drop it in, let it go on top. Push it down, drop it in, let it go, right on top. Super easy. This makes loading your magazine, your high capacity magazine, really easy, really quick. That was 12 rounds, bing, bang, boom. Very, very simple, very quick. Save you a lot of time on the range, and time on the range is money. 20 to 30 bucks an hour. You don't want to be spending a whole lot of time doing this. And just to show you, I'm going to take out a couple. This has got 10 rounds in it now, and now pushing that down to get this to go in is much more of an effort. It's not impossible. This is not you don't have to be Hercules to do it. I'm certainly not. But it's, especially that last one, is tough. It's a challenge to get it in there. Not impossible, but it's a little bit more work than you may want to do. And that's where your trusty speed loader comes in. I'm telling you, you're going to want to get one of these. This is a 12-round mag. They make 15s, they make 17s, and they get almost ridiculous in the capacity. They get huge. And those are tough. They're just tough to load. And there are other magazines that, even if the capacity isn't that great, just the nature of the magazine itself, for some reason, is the spring is tougher, and some magazines are tougher to load than others. So this one isn't actually too bad, but I like my speed loader, and I think you will too. So that's the basics of loading magazines and the implications of double and single stack on the loading process. Hope that made some sense and was some use to you. Make your life a little bit easier when you start loading your own. If you liked the video, please like the video. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. I'm going to have a lot more coming up, and I want you on board. Come along on the ride with me. See ya.